Welcome everyone to the Tools of the Trade live stream. I'm your host, Captain Cole, and I'm joined by my co-host Trip, better known as Crypto ISO on Crypto Twitter. We got an awesome episode for you guys today, but lots to talk about, lots to get into. But before I get started, would you please do me a favor, smash that like button, make us look good for the YouTube algo. Also want to take a quick second to thank our sponsor, Phemex, one of the only non-KYC derivatives exchanges left in crypto. Click the link in the description below to get up to $6,000 in sign-up bonus. Now, the last thing I'll say before we get started here on Tools of the Trade is that nothing we say here is meant to be considered financial advice. We are not financial advisors, and this information is for educational purposes only. So with that said, Trip, how's it going, man?
It's good. I'm taking trades here and there, but I've been pretty busy building up my pandas with the new Murdered Out trait pack.
Love it.
I don't know, just having fun. While you guys are all partying in Miami, I decided to save my health. And it looked like it was a good idea from what I saw.
From what you saw, yeah, it was definitely a bender and a half. But good to be back behind the charts, man. It's been a full week since I've actually looked at charts. So I'm very keen to kind of jump in and we'll look at BTC, ETH, take some alt requests, etc. Before we actually get into BTC and stuff, I'd love to get your take kind of on DXY, and we kind of do the macro backdrop and take it from there.
Yeah, can you guys see the DXY chart right here? Yeah, I mean, look, we had kind of talked about how there was a lot of conversation, but really it only becomes relevant until you get this break, right? And so it was kind of 102, 102.3 like area, and we had a nice impulse up. I think people were looking at 103 as like, your resistance kind of. And so are we going to stop here, or is it just going to come to this pivot at 105? I don't know, but it's really interesting, when people are talking about correlations to, risk assets. I mean, the NASDAQ has gone straight up, right? Yeah, we had a down day the other day, but obviously NVIDIA is helping it now. Tech is carrying the market, right? It seems pretty resilient. And so, in the face of rates going up and the dollar going up, it's kind of interesting to see that. Bitcoin and Ethereum are kind of, as we said, just kind of trading on their own. It's not really correlated to risk, except yesterday when we saw a pretty big sell-off in risk. Then, we obviously got the drop in them, which I think the NASDAQ was down like over 1%, and so is ES. So it's like these down days, but then they get bought back up again in traditional. And crypto, we've kind of continued to bleed, as we've talked about with market structure, making lower highs and lower lows. So it's very much of the same, I think, as we're going into kind of the June meeting, which is everyone's kind of watching to see what's the Fed going to do. Is there a pause coming? But the force that's driving the market right now is really this tech tailwind, right? And AI, and like people are betting big on that. So it's kind of a take it day by day. I'm not trading as much of the traditional markets. I'm trading more of the crypto. So I've just stuck to really just trading level to level around liquidity, using the Monday ranges that we've talked about. I haven't really paid that much close attention to the dollar. Yes, crypto sold off when the dollar ripped, but these didn't over here. So it's kind of an environment that I've never really seen before.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So treading lightly would be the best way to do it. I think Friday, tomorrow we have, let me just see here. Core PCE, I think.
Okay. Might get some volatility there in the morning.
May 26th, is that what we're looking at? Yeah, so core PCE, 830, personal spending. I think consumer confidence. Yeah, consumers. Yeah, so there's some data points, right? But obviously the big ones are FOMC, CPI. But even those we've kind of seen as, you're reading yesterday's newspaper, trading last year's program, like there's not that much variation in the estimates and what the numbers are coming in. And they're actually slowly coming down. And so is the market realizing that things are just going to be higher for a sustained period of time, but are eventually coming lower? I think that's kind of what equities are trading in that regard, where they're looking at the Fed and saying, like, you guys are done, and there's a big driver of tech in the market right now, and it looks like it's going to keep going up. So when does crypto recorrelate to that is the question.
Yep.
And maybe it's around an event like the debt ceiling, which seems inevitable. They're going to raise it. I mean, it's just not, it doesn't seem like, we're going to go into default, right? And so,
If it ain't broke, don't break it.
yeah, it's like if you got a pretty big sell off into that, BTC potentially, maybe like sub 25, it could be an interesting long given some of the deltas. And that's obviously an area on the chart. And we can talk about that. But
Yep.
yeah, DXY and risk assets is like the parity is not really that one-to-one trade that people have been used to. I think it's at times, but it's not as like obvious to me at least.
Makes sense. I like that. So yeah, I'm gonna jump into Bitcoin. I think that's kind of my go-to now, just to kind of get a pulse back on the market, right? So daily look here. Obviously, we talked about the lower highs and lower lows. Just kind of continues. We came into here. Was it this morning, right? 25.8, right? So almost like a double bottom structure. Just missed the low. To me, I think at this point, this whole range has just been chop solidating. So range low, it makes sense to assume we're going to probably go back to the range high. Where do we put that higher low or that lower high that we kind of talked about from the macro picture? I don't know, maybe 28s, low 28s, high 27s again at some point before this inevitable range just kind of breaks down. So I'll be curious to see what happens going into next week. We talked about the Monday range usually. Now it's Thursday. Excuse me. And we rejected from the Monday low here, and now we're kind of consolidating underneath. So I'm not necessarily bullish here, but I wouldn't be shorting this level until we kind of got a breakdown below maybe 26.2, 26.1. Probably prefer the longs from this juncture, right? Just from its near range low. What are you seeing there, Trip, on BTC?
Yeah, I mean, we had talked about it in the Telegram. I was kind of looking at the chart. Let me pull up Hyblock so you guys can see here. Well, I'll just pull up BTC actually. Let me share this tab here. Can you guys see this?
Yep.
So, yeah, I'd also like to just give I don't even really the term shout out, but some recognition to Spaceman, because the way that this indicator works, if people don't have it, you can get it for free on TradingView under indicators. Type in Spaceman levels, and I think it's called Spaceman
Key levels.
BTC key level.
Yep.
This one right here. And what it does is, we talk about these pivotal areas like weekly open, your Monday ranges, which are, your high, your low, your mid. You can look at the daily open, the previous weekly low, quarterly. So when I was looking at BTC today, I saw this move down here to 25.8. And it's like, these are things that I don't just like blindly long, right? But I do look at pretty much this previous weekly low in the daily open. So you reclaimed it, you came back down, and then you traded back above it. And so the decision to get long 26.3 here, I mean, it's pretty good in validation. Like, you don't really want to come down, probably, I would say, below like 26.1, maybe even this wick here.
Yep.
This impulse up here into Monday low, yeah, this could seem like it's a good short, but this is probably a trap to short this, in my opinion. So as long as we stay above the previous weekly low, I see us pushing up to at least the weekly open.
Yep.
And then if we go past the weekly open, chances are you're probably going to trade to Monday's high and run that to where you could use this diagonal. You could start to look at liquidity. But like, this is basically a POB, right? This is a point of breakdown. You
Yep.
had price tried to go up here and you had an impulse down, right? So if you're reclaiming this POB, and this basically just an SR flip, POB is something Zorn and I use as terms just to help us, around the weekly open, then it becomes much more bullish. You'll probably have people long this at least to the Monday high. And typically when we run the Monday high, you come into resistance here, and we can look at what that looks like on a liquidity standpoint. Let me just pull up Hyblock. I'll switch my screen. And then you trade it level to level, just like we've basically been doing. And is that your lower high? I'm not sure. 27.5, could it be? 28.3 would be a really good place to have a lower high.
Your
And
quarterly open.
yeah, and it's also the 61.8 Fibonacci retracement back up of the whole move. I mean, look at this. This is like pretty robust liquidity,
Right.
like up here, at least this, right? And you're pushing at 8 billion in shorts. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of green here. I mean, you can come down. This is 26.4. Basically, this is a massive cluster. Let's try to drop some granularity to see like if there's maybe some easier licks to target. Yeah, I mean, this one seems pretty obvious, 25.2, right? And then you could cascade just into like all of this, right? This is probably your real resistance, I would say. Like
the POB of that breakdown below Monday high, essentially.
Yeah, and then you maybe get a delta flip. People will be eager to short it, I think. So then you might get some distribution up there, right? Like kind of, like this type of stuff before you get a drop, or when you run these areas. This was interesting. It was like a staircase down into the high, and then it just boom, it nuked. But yeah, that's what I'm looking at right now on BTC. So I'm long BTC with a pretty clear invalidation, looking for that kind of like 27 to 27, like 27.3 to 27.5 area. And if we pull the basically our fib, I guess you could look at it this way. 26.8 is that area.
You're still on Hyblock, by the way.
Oh, my bad. Sorry, I'm not. Got to get back to the. So here's if we're pulling the fib here on this high. Do you guys see this?
Yep.
We'd be coming back into like that. Basically, like this 61.8 is that SR flip that we talked about. So this is your kind of first trouble area, would be my guess. If you flip it, then you're probably going to trade higher. I don't know if you go back up to the previous weekly high, but
I feel like at that point you're breaking some market structure. And it almost will be.
Well, you're making a higher high off of this.
Yeah,
one right here. You're taking out this high, taking out this high. Does it just like go straight up and take out this high? Is that like your debt ceiling move potentially?
That could be, yeah.
I don't know, but I'm not incredibly bearish down here, mainly because of the delta and because we've reclaimed some key areas. We can look at ETH if you want. Just I didn't long ETH, even though ETH BTC is pretty interesting. But again, I mean, here's a key. Like we ran the previous monthly low here, and it was bought up quickly, and now we're above the previous weekly low, right? So you could have like basically longed here, stop here, and you're targeting similar move to BTC. Like, are you going back up here to Monday high? And we can look at the liquidity on ETH. I haven't looked at it in detail, but I imagine that there's probably some key licks around those zones. I don't know exactly what the delta is, but I can probably tell you that it's a red one.
Yep.
Where's ETH right now? 1807. Yeah. So, let's see here. Yeah. Okay. So
switch back to Hyblock.
So there's 2.8 billion in shorts on ETH right now. Nothing crazy. This ratio isn't that out of whack.
One-sided, yeah.
But you do have shorts in the market. If BTC's looking kind of bullish, then you could start to take out these, like 1840. I mean, 1830. Those are the levels we just kind of like looked at. I guess I'm leaning more towards a squeeze side as long as we stay above the levels I talked about around the weekly low and daily open. And then on ETH, you would be looking at as like we reclaimed the Monday low, the daily open, the weekly open. So it's clearly pretty strong. And maybe you have some comments on ETH BTC in regard to that, because we had talked about how that was looking like bullish and ETH could just go down less in a dollar amount versus BTC. But the ETH
the upside
chart, like that diagonal, it's it was looking
Yeah.
bullish.
So looking at it from the weekly perspective, we talked about the 3 inside up reversal we had, and then this like 3 inside down, but it didn't close below. So, now we're just we had a down candle, and the last 4 weeks now, going to this 4th week here, has just been bullish, climbing back up slowly. So again, this kind of screams bullish to me on ETH BTC. I do expect us, at least try to go for some sort of diagonal 0.07, the previous mid range. So I'd be kind of curious to be looking for ETH longs on the daily, very similar. It's just been a slow grind up. Whether or not, this is going to be a reversal candle remains to be seen. But I'm pretty bullish. We're above the Monday high on ETH BTC. ETH in general has just been looking good. So I do think ETH longs are actually better at this juncture. But looking at, just ETH in general, we reclaimed that Monday low, like Tripp said. And to me, the range that we've just been in is kind of capped by the Monday high, Monday low, if you kind of just drew it across straight, right? So in my mind, coming back to this Monday high seems inevitable. Whether we get some sort of rejection because that was the previous range high would be interesting. But I would like something like maybe a dip back below weekly open, a reclaim, and then that's a trigger with maybe a stop below wherever the reclaim is to kind of get that continuation move back to the upside. So yeah, ETH, it definitely looks interesting given ETH BTC. BTC looks interesting as long as it holds that range low. And again, guys, we talk about when price is at range low, it's just easier to be high time frame bullish, or at least within the range to be bullish at range lows than be bearish, because to assume now the second tap of this quote unquote random level at 25.8 is going to hold, the likelihood the second tap holds is high, the third maybe not so much, the fourth, the fifth, whatever the case is, and so on. But point being, second time coming into this 25.8 level, it makes sense you're going to have some sort of automatic reaction. Breakdown sellers coming in at the lows, not getting rewarded, obviously, and then price continues back up. I think that's everything on BTC and ETH. Should we take a peek at some alts?
Yeah. So the really interesting thing, and people had taken when you were kind of entertaining your guests, we were talking about the monthly open on ETH, how that was like a pretty pivotal level, and you can see my screen. We kind of ran it, traded back below it, and then consolidated above like this previous weekly high. But like once we started to trade below this, like it was almost like you could just get in a short here and put your stop basically above here as like a really tight setup, because you shouldn't trade back above it, because then to me it was like, if this is going to happen, then you probably run the monthly open and you could just come back up to like 1900. It didn't seem that way at the time, but like we had taken an INJ short, and we can talk about that using the Monday high, trading back down below that. But we basically traded the monthly open to the previous monthly low. So you took out a fair bit of market participants here, right? Now the question is like, I think you have to kind of, I would say above the quarterly open of 1820, and you're opening the doors to the previous weekly high. And if BTC does a big move, then this is going to go back to like, you could go to this diagonal, right? So these are just things that I'm kind of looking at, cognizant of, based on these levels. And liquidity, like people were short the market. Like here, the deltas were green up here, right? So monthly open, pretty green delta. I don't necessarily like blindly short this type of stuff. I mean, you could maybe leave some asks directly on the monthly open. You get this candle. You're basically saying like, all right, I'll put my stop slightly above that high, right? Because if it trades above the monthly open again, you're probably going to go higher. But yeah, we can look at some alts. I don't know if there's any requests from.
Feel free to drop any request, chat. Happy to take a peek. But what have you been trading? You said Mask recently?
INJ.
INJ, that's what it was.
Here, we'll look at. We'll just go over how that looked, basically. Let me pull this up. Hold on, I'll share it. I just it doesn't have liquidity either.
I was just checking for it.
Oh, you're back to the old school.
Trying to, yeah.
Yeah, so it was basically here, sharing here. So the trade that I took and that we posted was when it did this move and ran the high, and then basically started to trade back below here, shorted it, and we can go to an hourly because I think there was more better look up there. Yeah, this candle right here is a bearish candle, right?
Yep.
And then you had another one. So to me, it was like, okay, trade back below the Monday high. It's going to go for the Monday low, right? So it was a pretty good, I don't know, maybe like 4-to-1 setup or something. I had put my stop like a little, I think it was like right here. And I literally put my buy orders at 656. And like it was a trade where you set and forget. I woke up and it was filled. It's great. And like, look, immediately it traded back to the mid, rejected. This wasn't like something I really wanted to mess around with. But you came down, you ran the low again, tried to go above it. Now we've just like stuck below Monday's low at this point. So I don't really have anything to say in regard to what it could do now. I guess we could put on some of the weekly levels and see what they look like where price is in relation to them. And guys, again, this is the Spaceman BTC key level, so you can put it on any chart, and then you can like basically customize what you want to look at, right? So it can get a little messy, call it that, where you can pick and choose what you want to do, but I find it really helpful. So for me, you trade below this previous day low and hold, then this probably is going to trade to the previous weekly low. And when I took this trade, I actually was like, I think this is going to go to $6, but I had already put my trade in and I didn't necessarily want to change it because that's, I don't know, that's just not the way
Got to follow the system, right?
I operate. I knew my risk. I knew what I was going to make, lose, fine. A lot of people take these Monday low trades, like losing it. I'm not as confident with this type of trade. I don't know why, just maybe because it's that I just sold into support, right?
Shorting a breakdown of support, yeah.
Yeah, but you're trading back below the daily open, close below the previous day low, then the next logical level is probably here. But if BTC and ETH are going to move up, is it going to do that? I don't know. We'll see. Mask, I had actually looked at this one on a similar instance where it didn't like run it. it just like touched it up here. Do you see this?
Yeah, interesting.
And so here you ran the low, you reclaimed it. In this instance, like this looked bullish, right? Like this candle alone, this candle, it made sense it was going to go back up to the high. I was actually waiting for it to go through the high and then take the trade similar to INJ back down. And here, look, this thing lost Monday's low and just like tanked, right?
Yep.
And I actually was thinking about shorting on this way down. I didn't, but I did put some bids here because I was like, this is a big level that would probably bounce, like based on what other things have done. But it didn't make it there. It's kind of not really a trade zone for me right here.
Yeah.
I think it's eventually going to come down to this 360 level though, just as INJ will kind of go down to that $6 level. And
So
then,
looking at that 3.6 level you just mentioned, the liquidity on it. So the delta is obviously super red, 173 to 40, good ratio. But there are some licks down to like 3.6, like you just mentioned. So if we get that final clearing of all the longs on a sell-off, that's probably a good mean reversion trade because then you have all these licks back to like 420. So interesting. Alt just pointed out there.
yeah, 370. You're going to be hitting like 50x longs, like 369. Like
Yep.
that's your previous weekly low. Here, I'll show or did you show the liquidity?
Yeah, I was just on it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Like this is like, if you get this, there's probably like, I mean, this ratio is already crazy, but if you do get this, like this is probably a pretty interesting long. So I started to look at a lot of levels around previous weekly lows on alts, like where there's potential bounces that could happen. Another interesting
Got requests for ARB, Lido, Phantom, and CFX.
Okay, I just pulled up Lido because I wanted to look at it because our friend XO had a pretty nice top short on this bad boy. Yeah, what he short, like 250 or something, and then Jump sent a bunch of coins to Binance, and the Wolf tweeted about it, and boom.
You did, and it's over.
Yeah. So, all right, let's see if we have the Spaceman. Yeah. Okay. Let's put the Spaceman on. Let's turn the bands off. Do you have the liquidity on it?
Yep.
All right. Got some indicators here. What was that? Buy, sell. Oh, yeah. Okay, so the weekly levels. I'm going to put these in orange. So it basically ran the previous month low, which is obviously where you got kind of your bounce, this 195 area, and it traded back to weekly open, and now it's kind of trading back down. Do I think it goes to 189 to this previous weekly low? Probably, because this is like a huge area where, like, look at the origin of the move, right? It's kind of like this zone here.
Yep.
So does it have to come down here? No, but under here you're probably going to grab liquidity into this, and I haven't looked at the licks on this. Do you have them up?
Yep. So licks on this, not very clear. 121 to 137. So to me, that's just chopping. And because it's not a clear setup, and we are below, I think.
Wait, 121 to 130. Are you on Lido?
Yeah.
What's 121?
Shorts.
Oh, the ratio. I thought you were talking about the price.
Yeah. No. Ratio.
Yeah.
121 shorts to 137 longs. So, it's pretty evenly split. So at this point, no clear setup either way. But, when we looked at Tripp's chart showing, we're kind of below these key levels right now, until we get back above probably at least the weekly open, I'd assume that we're probably going to go back for that previous weekly low that you just mentioned.
Yeah. So again, it's all really dependent on what BTC and ETH are going to do here. But the reason why that 195 area was so interesting was because it's your 61.8 fib of like this entire move, right? The one thing I'll say about Lido is it's usually the first to move, and then people chase it, and they get run all the way down on the long side until it hits like the real demand zone. And if you don't catch these moves on Lido, like trying to long on the way down, like, which is mostly distribution each time, it's not worth it. Like, you have to get these crazy impulses, because this happens in like 2 days or something, when it does just like an absurd move. And it led the move in January, like literally the start of the year, and after a big sell-off, like in alts, kind of led this move back up, right? So I wouldn't, like, Lido's not that interesting to me right now. There's really nothing like that screams to get involved with it.
Agreed. I'll take a look at ARB if you want to look at the liquidity there.
Sure.
So ARB, here's the Monday range. It looks like we're trying to reclaim the Monday low. Doesn't look too hopeful yet, but yeah, until we have a clean, maybe higher high and retest of the Monday low, wouldn't be looking for any longs. Short side, yeah, if we get a rejection back below and then retest the Monday low, maybe you're using, this is invalidation. But I wonder what the liquidity looks like here, because, just looking at it from this perspective, I don't see a clear setup. Obviously, BTC, ETH at the range lows. So to assume that these are all going to break down, probably looking for longs. Now, the question is, the best long is going to be the one that has been showing strength. So unless it's above the Monday low, or, hopefully even above the weekly open, those are the alts you actually want to look at.
Yeah,
what's liquidity look like
100
there?
and so they're sharing on 168 million in shorts. Obviously, there's more shorts than longs. 393 to 141. When you get this kind of like these like coil like move ups, if BTC does an impulse, this is going to rip, and it's going to take out like these up here, right, and could come into here. If it shits the bed, then like you're coming down here. But again, just based on like delta alone, like this is not something I'm going to short here. With this is pretty sustained down here around 190 to like 170, 100, and you're
Yep.
building like this interesting kind of maybe this consolidation zone, right? So what were those levels that you talked about? The weekly open?
Yeah, the weekly open is 128, and then the Monday low is 1-1, which we're trying to flip right now.
And then the high, the Monday high?
114.
Okay, that's here. That's a 1.138 huge lick 25x. So if you ran the Monday high, you'd be taking this out, like this zone here.
Yep.
So if you're bullish, but I don't really know what a setup is here, so I'm not saying long this, but I wouldn't be shorting it based on what we kind of just talked about. What are the other ones?
We got CFX, Phantom, Blur, Algo, Sushi.
Dude, Blur, that was a good trade people took. Their thing went up like 15% and immediately reversed.
Really?
CFX, I don't think there's liquidity for it.
No, I don't think there is.
You can look at the chart. What was the other one?
Phantom. Yep.
Okay, let me pull up Phantom. This is such a dinosaur coin. Loading. Okay. There's a fair amount of shorts on Phantom.
Oh wow, yeah.
223 million. They're not like crazy amounts of longs here. Like there's shorts sprinkled in. The interesting thing to me is like this gap. So for price to really push up, you have to start hitting
Breaking market structure or continuing bullish market structure with some higher highs.
33.6, that area, which would be really interesting because this is a range, right? And you can look at this as a range low, and you took out the stops here and you've kind of reclaimed it, right? And so are you going to make a move up and take out all these highs and trade into maybe, I don't know, somewhere up here? I mean, we can, this is a favorable ratio for a squeeze. Let's look at just a lower granularity setting to see if like there's a more clear-cut lick profile. Yeah, so there you'd be taking out those highs. Can it push up here? Sure. Are these levels relevant on any of the
Yes.
things?
So Monday low is right back at 35.30, which is like a tippy top lick you just showed there. So I could see, again, this consolidation. If you get a break in market structure, I'd almost like to wait for that before longing back up here, because then you have this and maybe some here on validation. But otherwise, this is going to continue consolidating up and down until kind of Bitcoin decides up or down. So I don't think it's the best long until we see that break in market structure above, what was it, like 133, you said, 138?
Yes. Yeah. These range highs here.
Yep.
Yeah. And like, I never really paid attention to these levels as much, but it's pretty interesting when you pair up liquidity with the levels. So there's like extra confluence around those are pain points to remove market participants by price getting there, whether it be on the short side or the long side. So we're just trying to capture those inflection points or areas where you can get those swift reversals, where like you're getting an exhaustion point, either running a ton of longs, which we kind of did, and now it seems like the market's building a lot more or trapping shorts, right? So is there a squeeze coming in that regard, and then where do you figure out when that exhaustion point comes from the buyer side?
Yeah, so like the one thing to keep in mind there, right? So like we talk about these high time frame levels, right? The Monday open, the Monday low, the Monday high, and then we talk about monthly open, weekly open, whatever the case is. When you're looking at high time frame levels and you're expecting a reaction, you want to kind of tune into that level as price trades through it, because if you don't get the reaction you're expecting, then the level is no longer valid, right? So we look at these higher time frame levels, let's say the Monday range, and you pair it with liquidity, and then you see whether or not, buyers or sellers are coming in at the lows or at the highs. You have a better understanding of how the market's positioning and if those levels are going to hold or break based on that, basically.
Yeah, and nothing's bulletproof, but some of the trades that we've looked at recently have been around those levels with liquidity. Even around those levels without liquidity, like INJ, like you can still trade stuff without liquidity. Everyone does it. It's price action. It's where buyers and sellers are going to disagree, and you're just trying to identify that. But yeah, what were the other ones?
Let's see here. Algo, sushi.
Algo and sushi.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can pull up sushi. I haven't traded this coin in a long time.
It's been
liquidity really just like left this whole thing.
Yeah, it's been in a range forever, essentially.
I think there's a lot of regulatory headwinds.
Oh yeah, yep.
There's some workers here. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I mean, there's 420 shorts to 119 longs, and you're sitting on. But look, it's only 25 million in shorts. Remember when this would be like 100 million in shorts?
A couple hundred, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so
it's not a screaming buy to me based on that.
Yeah, I mean, look, like this is. Yes, can it squeeze? But it's like each time it does, it just seems really weak. Like, I guess what did it do from here with 15 million? It was what 86 cents, and it traded 91.
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, I get you could draw a diagonal here. Maybe it broke it a little bit. Again, if BTC wants to trade up, this will probably trade up with it. I haven't looked at the sushi BTC pair though. Do you have the chart up?
I had the regular chart up. Yeah. Just from general standpoint, this thing has been just down only since February, right? So this is not an asset I'm looking to long at all in general. I think also the fact that they had the regulatory stuff kind of also hurt their liquidity in terms of what they're actually seeing, participants trading on derivatives or even spot. But the way this has just been kind of down only, lower lows, lower highs, I would be looking for a bearish retest of maybe the Monday low to kind of get into a trade for a short. But again, wouldn't think to short this based on where BTC's at range lows. So maybe, this is an alt you watch as, let's say BTC breaks up to 27, maybe sushi only goes to Monday low or weekly open. And if you see a rejection and start trading back down, or see a rejection starts trading back down, this is like when you see another breakdown, that's where you look to get in and then put your invalidation over that higher time frame level, right? So I don't think sushi is a good long, but I do think it's probably a weak alt to short if everything else kind of tanks.
Yeah, there just seem to be a lot of headwinds really to long it. And to short it, it's like I just think that there's probably better assets to find to trade.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'll take a look at Algo if you want to pull up the liquidity.
Yeah, we'll look at CFX. There's no liquidity on it. I'll look at it in prep for June 1st China narrative. Oh, we're trading. We got new narratives to trade.
I love it. Yeah, see, Algo just looks like it's going all-time lows, right? Is it all-time lows? Nearly. Wow. Okay. So yeah, Algo's just breaking down, right? This was one of the phone, I think the meme was from last cycle, right? Phantom, Atom, I don't know, Phantom, Algo, something else. But point being, yeah, this is a layer one that was hyped up from last cycle that has just been kind of consistently down only since February. So this again, kind of similar to sushi.
That
the downtrend, right?
Yeah, and look how many people are still trying to long it each time.
Yeah, it just.
This is not something I want to get involved in. Look at all these longs, man. This is crazy. With all this short, well, there's 40 million, but what is it? I mean, was Gensler just like the nail in the coffin on this when that whole thing happened?
He might have been in that case, yeah.
Yeah. Again, there's something that's kind of like tarnished that I don't really want to get involved in.
Yeah, also just seeing the amount of green dots you have there, that just tells me, this is probably a spot selling rally or a spot selling driven move while derivatives keep trying to buy it up. So, when derivative sellers or derivative buyers try to go against, spot sellers, it doesn't usually work out well for them.
Yeah. And the red delta can be deceiving in that regard. That's where all the histograms come in. But yeah, so algo, I don't know. I wouldn't, it's not something that interests me. So I pulled up CFX, and this to me, can you see it?
Yep, you're good.
To me, this is the range, right? 33. This is like you basically ran the high, traded back below it, right? This is your deviation, stop run, whatever you want to call it. Pretty aggressive, to be honest. It'd be interesting to see liquidity on this. And you're trading below the monthly open, right? But you're in the middle of the range of like the Monday range, right? But the real range is probably 27.33. So my guess is you chop around here, and as long as you stay below the monthly open, you're eventually going to trade back to weekly open, potentially the Monday low, and if you're going below here, the weekly low, which is the previous month low. I don't know anything about this coin, but maybe we'll look at it on a daily chart too, just to see like what the market structure looks like.
Yeah, this is a range within a range again. It's basically hanging at the mid range.
Yeah, did it take this high? Yeah, it barely did, right? So you just took these highs essentially, and like this is your resistance right here. This is close. So, yeah, I mean your monthly range, you basically deviated it. You reclaimed the monthly low. This is an interesting way to look at it, actually. So the midpoint of this is what? If this is the monthly open, yeah. If you're trading like above the Monday high again, then
you're probably going for the monthly high or the previous monthly high.
Yeah,
because you're in that range, basically.
Looking at it this way, yeah, because you deviated it here, right? If you come back down here, chances are you're going to make a lower low on this, right? And then that's not like you're just confirming bearish market structure at that point. Because this was your low, here's your lower low. I guess you could consider this your lower high off of here. It's not incredibly clear on the lower time frame, but it is actually very clear on the monthly range here.
Yeah.
So if there is some China narrative that we don't know about, and you have some fundamental reasoning for it, I would look at the Monday high as like an area of reclaiming, where
that'd be like the trigger.
Yeah, you're taking out these highs fast, right? And this is your next logical level up here, which is your range, right? And a lot of these things are just in a range. So trade at level to level. Yeah. Or if you ran the Monday low and reclaimed it. If you
that could also be a trigger, yeah.
Reclaimed it, then you maybe go up there. But that's the first time I looked at it. And there's no liquidity on it. So hopefully that was somewhat helpful for CFX. Yeah.
Let's see. Litecoin. Cool. So Litecoin's kind of interesting, right? So you have this halvening narrative in what, like 2-3 months from here, I think it is. Just zooming out, it's kind of been trying to show some strength against Bitcoin as of recently. Now, is this a potential higher low here? This could be like a nice little level that we're kind of flipping. I'd almost like to see this hold as a higher low, not to go any lower. And then if you got a reclaim of the monthly open, that'd probably be a long. But I wouldn't necessarily be bullish LTC until it reclaimed monthly open, just because I feel like there's a good chance you can get like this and then a rejection lower. And maybe this is just your move if BTC goes higher and it doesn't really do anything on the upside and it hits harder on the downside. So yeah, waiting till monthly open. What's the liquidity look like there, Trip?
Yeah, so there's a fair amount of shorts on this. It's also doing that thing where like it's kind of like staircasing up, and like a lot of the
Oh, you're still
time.
on CFX, by the way.
Oh, my bad. Here, hold on. Do you see it now?
Yep.
450 million in shorts.
Okay.
This is obviously favoring a squeeze. If Bitcoin does it, like then I actually see this probably making like a pretty swift, fast move up into like potentially these 90 licks up
Yep.
here.
Your Monday low.
Is that the Monday low?
Yep.
Yeah. So again, I'm not even looking at your screen. I'm doing charting over here, and you could draw a diagonal like straight through this and say like, all right, we just broke this mini downtrend, right? And then that gives you your impulse. Again, like, can it come down here first? Yeah, but I don't know. This kind of looks like perky right here.
Yeah, I do agree.
So, you had a lot of people long Litecoin on that. Like, remember went up like 14% in a day or something?
Yep.
On like the news of that chart floating around of like what it looks like going into the halving. So you could have just washed a bunch of people out, and like now you have buyers coming back in. Like, I haven't looked at it on like a weekly chart or like a daily chart in a while, so I'm just going off liquidity right now, but it looks kind of perky, where it could make an impulse up. Have you looked at it against BTC at all?
No, let me actually take a peek at that. That's a good point.
I'll just chart Litecoin too to see if I see anything.
So Litecoin BTC actually made higher high market structure here with a break, but it is still within a range. So, this quarterly open area, if you really want to use BTC pairs for levels, right? So like as long as we're above this quarterly open, Litecoin probably outperforms BTC in the near future, at least until the halvening, right? Because that's usually just like a fundamental catalyst to push things up higher. So I'd be kind of curious to see if BTC bounces from this 26.45 range back up to for a lower high, what Litecoin's going to do from there.
Yeah, I mean, here's your trend on Litecoin. Let me just share this on just the USD pair. Like if you're looking at like from 48, right?
Yep.
It hasn't made a lower low, or it has. So like you can't confirm.
Hasn't made a
low.
higher high, but yeah.
So like this is your low. This is the low right now. Like if you
Unconfirmed without the higher high though.
Yeah, right. If you start breaking down this trend, chances are you're going to be taking this low out at 65. Then that's going to confirm. You'll probably, if you came up and then kind of came back down, you're going to get the lower high at some point. But I'm not like super bearish on the Litecoin chart on the weekly. Like that's a pretty bullish candle right there. I haven't looked at like any of the oscillators or anything. I mean, the daily's kind of turning on the 3-day. Are there any like TD signals, or what does the weekly Stoke look like? That's always a good one. Nothing that really eye-opening, but again, market structure wise, like you haven't confirmed bearish market structure. So I think that's something to be cognizant of as you look at how many shorts there are in Litecoin right now, and what you just said about
definitely a
BTC
stronger alt. Yeah, it's definitely a stronger alt to play if you are going to play on the long side. And I think that's based on just the BTC pair, and then obviously the liquidity profile that we just discussed.
Yeah, I could see it trade up to here, 90.5, probably somewhere around, like just that would be taking the licks, and that's the Monday low.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the quick and dirty on Litecoin.
So GMX is interesting, right? It had that whole Arbitrum pump going into the release of the ARB token, and now it's kind of just also been down only. Again, this is kind of similar for a lot of alts, but this one's definitely weaker, along with Sushi and what were we looking at before that? Atom or Algo. The point being is, this is basically going back to much lower, 52, maybe even a retest of 44. I wouldn't be looking to long this, but I would like to short a breakdown of this. If BTC goes up, it makes a lower high and then starts breaking down. Some of these support levels should hold for a SR flip on the way down, or the way up retest, I should say. But nothing too clear here. High time frame.
The liquidity is weird on this.
What's it looking like?
I mean, it's just like, you're right. It's just
wow.
like
Yeah.
bleed. Like everyone tries
Looks
to
like
long it.
consistent TWAP selling is what it looks like.
Yeah. Like people, when you see this many green circles with like this much red delta, I just stay away. Like
Yeah.
it's just, or if you get squeezes on it, you short it. But like, look, it doesn't really squeeze.
It's just
It
consistent downtrend.
It just bleeds.
Yeah.
Like, so it can go down to here, 49, right? And
Yep.
this can get redder. We saw it with CHC, and as Oren said, that's like indicative of spot selling and people trying to buy on margin, which they keep
Never
getting
works out.
down. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is actually probably a decent coin to, I guess, systematically sell using whatever trend following system you have. Maybe even Ichimoku. Whenever you get like a sell signal, just basically swinging it for lower lows and putting a stop above a break in market structure for a higher high probably would work pretty nicely there.
Yeah. Did we look at ARB? No, we didn't. We started with Lido.
No, I think we did ARB, didn't we? Yeah, no, I talked about ARB.
Did we?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Oh, yeah, we did talk about it. What was? Oh, someone wanted to look at Blur, and there's no liquidity for that, but we can still take a look at that because it was. You have the June unlocks coming. You have a bit of NFT buzz going on, like short term at least. There was, and what I was looking at on Blur was there's a lot on this chart here, but like
switch it to
yeah, I'm just basically you were like a 2-week consolidation down here, like where you basically ran this low with these, you reclaimed it kind of here, and it just like was consolidating, but as it was pushing up to the structure and like, all right, just call this it's compressing, right? It's a triangle, but in patterns, I don't love to use them sometimes when looking at the context of it as a whole. They can help, but like you don't want it to be at the apex, right? You want it to be before. What is it, 70% or something, Zorn?
67. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, I don't know if this is right, but I'll usually look at like the width of it, and this is a 14% move essentially. So if you broke out of this, I was looking at this area and a 14% move, right? Like this is the trade. Not to get excited, like, yes, it's really tempting to be like, this is going back to 70 cents and all these things, but
that's the technical target of the breakout, essentially.
Yep. Traded it, sold it. This was a 4-hour TD9. I posted on Twitter, said, I think it was like right here. It's like, look, Blur's probably going to run out of steam here if risk is getting sold. I didn't take the short side of it just because I traded out of a long. I don't like to just get back into something immediately. And then people were thinking about longing this kind of retest here, which is always a trap in my opinion. Yep. So Blur to me is you had the move and now you're back here. And so it's probably not that interesting right now for me. But if you look at, I guess, like let's maybe look at it on a weekly level basis. Let's clean up the chart a little bit. Wow, what an ugly chart to begin with, first of all.
Just down only.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun to trade for a while, though. Like, this weekly candle, not that
could
great.
Be putting in a bottom. Yeah, but it could be putting in a bottom.
But this also can be very deceiving, and it could be an inverted hammer. And this can be, sellers cannot push it down 45. Like, this is a big level, right? I don't know what valuation that is, but I will say if you have unlocks coming, price tends to push up into those so people can get out at higher prices. We'll see. Yep. But like if sellers can't actually push it through here, like, and this kind of holds and you start the week here, I don't know. Maybe it's interesting. I haven't looked at spaceman levels on this. You can see like where we are. relative to, so Monday low, previous weekly low. If you ran this weekly low and traded back above it, could be interesting. But to me, the trade happened on Blur, and I'm not really doing anything with it right now because it moved like 15%, like quickly.
Yeah. When you have like a breakout out of consolidation, consolidation usually leads to expansion or contraction, and then expansion leads to more consolidation. So clearly, even if that was a move higher and we are going higher, we're probably going to go sideways for a period of time until we reattempt that breakout.
Right, exactly. So, not that interesting. I asked Hyblock to get liquidity on it because that would be a nice one to have.
Yeah, good idea.
They have some updates coming, which we'll keep you guys in the loop on. We're excited about, but yeah, that's just a teaser. What were some of the other alts?
Let's see. Woo, RNDR.
Oh, Render is obviously one that is gaining a lot of traction on, for the real application of tech. I think like on the Apple announcement or something. But yeah, this one is interesting. I would pay attention to the weekly low and the weekly high. Like, if you run this and trade back below it, it's probably a good short. Right now, it's this doji is like very much indecision. You're trading above the daily open, but you're below the previous day high.
Yeah, but you're also flipping the Monday high too, which is interesting.
Oh, here. Yeah, you're totally consolidating above it. But like, what's your risk reward to trade to the weekly high from here, putting your stop below the Monday high,
Yeah, it's like 1.5.
This has got a lot of hype. Like, it did a big move. Now it's kind of consolidating here, right?
Yeah, I'd almost like set triggers for the outside of the range, like we talked about. Range high, deviation comes back, use your invalidation, take a short, range low, sweep and reclaim, take a long, set invalidation, etc.
I thought about shorting this today, but then I looked at it myself. I was like, well, if I think BTC is going up, like this is a strong alt right now, then if BTC does a big move, this is going to take out shorts and probably trade through this level.
Yep.
And
agreed.
If BTC goes to 27.4, this is going to, I don't know.
Run the high, run the weekly. Yeah,
it's coming up here. And then you start to look at it back below the previous weekly high, I would say. Do we have the monthly number? I don't think I have monthlies on. Let me see. Do I? Yeah, they should. No, they're on previous one. It's not really. It's tempting to short things that like go up quickly, but it's playing into like a trend that's strong in like traditional markets right now. So
you're shorting momentum, and that's usually not the place you want to be in.
Right, because this is a strange wick to begin with, right? Like,
it reminds me of the near wick, if you remember that. To 6 or whatever it was.
Yeah. But this absent of this, like you've made a higher high here off of this, right? So is it going to make a higher low and come back and do that? I will say on the weekly though, like just like from a like, doesn't this look like Bitcoin like 32?
Yep.
And ETH, right? And so
it's coming into high time frame resistance. You got to be cognizant of that.
And you have a TD9 sell on the weekly. So the Stoke is crossing up still. So it's something to pay attention to as just like potential exhaustion around that. And it makes sense because this is big resistance here. This is a POB, like boom. This went from 330 to 30 cents.
90%.
Straight down. Like this is resistance here. It looks very similar to BTC and ETH as we, the range and then just like staircase up. So I think the way to look at it is this weekly range, right? Like this whole area. And
Yep.
if you run this and you trade back below it,
That's a clear short.
yeah, maybe it comes down to the mid, and then you're looking at the low. But
Yep.
it's a tricky one to take on the short side right now. I think there's no liquidity on it either, to see anything. You also had a daily 9, but this 7 is called a hanging 7, which is like this 9's probably going to get invalidated, right? So if BTC goes up, render's going up. That's the easiest way to look at it.
Yep. So let's kind of sum it up, Trip, and kind of kick things back. What are kind of weekend thoughts on Bitcoin and kind of how to trade into the weekend? Are we looking at long alts, short alts, long BTC, short BTC? What's the, I guess, consensus or thesis going into the weekend?
So for me, the directional bias is short squeeze right now. It's interesting. Like some alts look absolutely horrible. Some alts look like not too bad, right? So I think you really have to do your homework and sift through them. I found it really helpful to use these spaceman levels, and then when you're reclaiming or trading back below those things, and you have a directional bias on BTC and ETH, that's the best way to approach it. So for me, as long as you stay above the daily open on BTC and the previous weekly low, likely we trade to the weekly open, reclaim that. You're probably going to trade the Monday high, right? That's going to take ETH up with it and all the alts. I would look at alts relative to BTC. You could also look at them relative to ETH because of the ETH BTC chart looking
Pretty bullish.
yeah. And so you would think that ETH has maybe a larger move brewing based on that. So then
More of a squeeze.
yeah, so then alts could really get some steam, and like we looked at a lot of alt charts, like we didn't see one green delta, right?
Yeah.
Red
LTC,
delta.
I think, looked the best.
What?
LTC definitely looked the best. I think Litecoin is probably setting up the best for a squeeze if we do get that move up.
Yeah, we can look at Matic actually too, because there's XO had talked about like the 95 level, like which is your previous monthly low, or monthly open area, like on the, I guess you call it the short side, right?
Yep.
But if you look at Matic, like here's your resistance, right? Like up here, we haven't really tested it. Like this high was not taken, which is kind of interesting. It's holding above the Monday high. We didn't take the low, but I guess you're kind of just trading in the weekly range here, right?
Yep.
90 cents to 83. If you trade above the weekly high, it's probably going to it's if you're closing above here, it's going to go to here. It's going to go to 94 cents, potentially the monthly open. Right? This is the interesting short setup on Matic, I would say. But it's one of those ones that like you're like, oh, like what a shit thing to try to like trade, like a
Trade the chop.
it's great range, but like look at this, man. It's like everyone thought it was breaking down. Everyone thought it just didn't. So I think you trade up here, personally, on this before you
Go lower.
yeah, because look, you Monday low, you're holding above the Monday high. I guess if you trade back below the Monday high and the daily open, then
It's a short.
yeah, maybe you come down to the Monday low and the previous weekly low, 83. But
I think based on just our BTC thesis for the weekend, probably going to trade higher. Most of these things, shorting
yeah,
support or shorting range low. The second or potentially third time it comes into it, usually tends to reward the buyers, not the sellers. The more a level gets tested, the weaker it becomes. So I won't be surprised to see price trade higher over the weekend.
yeah, I'll just look at the Matic liquidity quickly so we can do it's a full analysis. Share it here. But yeah, everyone wants it to die, but it just doesn't. But it did squeeze today. a
Sure.
little
Yep.
bit, I
Yep.
think. And
Yep.
so that actually probably trapped longs. Like this is actually a green delta. Yeah, it is. Right. 110 to 294. What are we looking at here? 124 million in longs. Well, how would you really trap them? 92. I guess you could run those highs at 90, right? The
And
range
come
high
back
and
down. Yeah.
trade back below it. Maybe that's all you get.
That could be.
Yeah, it's not. This is not crystal clear to me. Because this is, yes, there's a lot of longs, but like this is a big grab on liquidity up here, and so is this. And so maybe it is 91 or something like that.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then you'll get, maybe you come down and take out some longs. But yeah, that's a weekly range that's just been pretty clear. So that's how I would look at it. Trade above weekly high, probably go to the monthly low, monthly open, and then you lose Monday high, you're probably going to go down to the low and then the previous weekly low. So
Yep.
bullet point trade ideas are the way I like to come up with and like craft my ideas. There's like three things, right? Then you're not complicating anything. You can base it on liquidity. You can base it on levels. It's just like simplify it, right? And if you
Exactly.
simplify it, your approach is going to be much simpler, and decision making will be much easier for you because you know invalidation, you know where you want to be in and out.
Yeah, I think having simple heuristics in general, regardless of what type of trading system you're using, as a discretionary trader, is key to at least be able to focus on the process, right? Like the outcome is kind of random, right? We take trades, we win, we lose, you move on. But what you can do is focus on the process itself. So when you take the time to simplify that process, you can go back then at the end of the trade and really do some deep risk and just technical understanding of how the trade played out, what you did well and what you did poorly based on having a simpler system, right? So you can go through, all right, I identified my trade, my thesis was liquidity was saying this, and then it ended up not trading through, the high time frame level, whatever the case was. That is where you can go back to your system and say, okay, well, liquidity was right, but the high time frame level didn't have a reaction, so it didn't matter. And that just gives you a more simpler way to kind of go through your trades and kind of identify where you went wrong and how you could kind of improve things. But yeah, I think solid stream today. We talked about a bunch of alts, Bitcoin, ETH, DXY, and talked about LTC. What was the other good one? Sushi, Algo being good for shorts. But yeah, I think that about wraps things up, ladies and gentlemen. Fun stream this week, and we will be back next week at our regular schedule time. So with that said, Captain Cole signing out.
See you guys.